Good afternoon. Greetings and welcome to family and friends of Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. I am Reverend Cindy Grimes, and I'm so glad that you chose to spend your afternoon, at least a little bit of time with me today. I am flying solo today. My practitioners, Donna and Norma, one of which Donna is actually on her way to New York City if she's not there already doing another gig as a traveling nurse. And I imagine that Norma is taking her, or at least on her way to the airport or something. So anyway, it's me this afternoon and you, and I hope that all is well. And so let's do our welcome here for those of you who may be joining us for the first time. Welcome, welcome to Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. These are the things that we value at the Center for Spiritual Living. It is number one on our list, spiritual growth and practice. We value love. It's everything, isn't it? Love is what makes the world go round. Love is what we're here to express, what we're here to be. And so it's at the top of our list, as is appreciation and a community and freedom, creativity, health and wholeness, generosity, and financial well-being. And I'm going to talk about most of these things today in some form or fashion. Let's see. And our mission at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala is to provide spiritual tools for personal and global transformation. Our purpose is to awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence, and our vision is a world that works for everyone. And for those of you who may not be really familiar with us, Centers for Spiritual Living is a global organization. We at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala are just one of over 400 communities that are found all over the world. And the mission and purpose and vision of CSL Ocala matches the larger organization. So as it says, our whole mission is to give people the tools and the principles and the understanding they need to live their best lives, which is what we call awakening to our spiritual magnificence and the truth of who we are. And so, let's see who is here. Hi, Lita's with us. Yeah, so if you're here, join us on the chat. As I said, it's just me this afternoon. So I'm going to go ahead and invite you to join me in prayer. And if you'll just take a moment to kind of turn your attention within, close your eyes if you're comfortable doing that, and just take a nice deep breath and feel your body begin to relax, and just release any tension that might be in your neck or in your shoulders. And as you breathe, allow your body to relax into the moment. And we release anything that's come before this time. Release any thoughts, concerns, or worries about the future, what may come later or tomorrow, and just be here right now, present in this moment. And so we breathe in again and just feel ourselves relax. And knowing that there is only one power and presence, truly one power and presence in which we live, move, and have our being. It goes by many names. We can call it spirit, we call it creator, we can call it God. We don't have to call it any name, it doesn't matter. We are part of that one creative force that is the substance of all there is. And from that place of the infinite source, of the infinite presence, of infinite power, I stake my claim. And my claim for today and my intention for the day is that all that needs to be said is said, and all that needs to be heard is heard. And that there are some gems, that there are some gifts in what Spirit brings forth today in my conversation with you and in the conversation that will follow in our Zoom chat. And I give thanks for what's revealed today, just knowing that there is some little nugget that goes to serve everyone's highest and best, that each person hears and receives and feels something that allows them to make a shift, that allows them to step into that higher yet to be, that place of transformation and growth and ever expanding love and joy and understanding and peace. And so I'm grateful for this time that we are getting to share with one another. Again, for what Spirit is revealing and for what Spirit has revealed, and for all the joy that is here now and is yet to come. So I release these words with joy and with gratitude, knowing that everything is unfolding in its perfect and right divine order. And I'm so grateful for that. And I say, and so it is. So it is. All right. So hello, Lita. Hello, Mary Lou. Other folks who will be joining us throughout. So today I am going to talk with you a little about our convention, which just happened. Let me throw a picture up here. Our virtual convention just happened for Centers for Spiritual Living. It's called VISTA. This year's convention was virtual. It was held from Tuesday, I believe, or Monday night through Thursday, the 15th through the 18th. And the theme was One Mind, Infinite Connection. One Mind, Infinite Connection. And let's see, and that also happens to be the title for today's talk for our third week of February, One Mind, Infinite Connection. So what's that all about? Well, for those of you who've never been to convention, it is a gathering of folks from Centers for Spiritual Living from all over the place, from the United States, from Canada, from all over the world. And this year's was online, well, partly because of COVID, but I think actually that's kind of the plan for every other year. We're going to have an online convention versus coming together in person. Last year's convention was held in Golden, Colorado, and I got to be there just before COVID shut everything down. So I hadn't seen some of these folks and heard some of these voices in a full year. So it was wonderful to gather with our community. Even though it was done virtually, it was just wonderful to see so many familiar faces and to be amongst the tribe again. So let's see. What do I want to tell you about this? Well, let me tell you a little bit about convention and who was there, right? So here's my little breakdown about what we're going to talk about today. So really who we are as a community, as a movement, as a religious denomination, spiritual denomination, why we come together, and what is it that we are really here to do. So let me break it down for you a little bit. So as far as who we are, again, for those of you who maybe have never even set foot in a center for spiritual living, we attract a certain kind of person in this denomination, and it was really clear for me participating in and watching the sessions from our most recent convention. And I think it was Martin Luther King who said in the 1960s that the most segregated place in America was our church pews. And that's not the case in Centers for Spiritual Living, not just Ocala, but Centers for Spiritual Living in general, that we have an extremely, extremely diverse population of people. Every session, I think, started out with someone speaking in Spanish and also in English. So there were multiple translations, what was going on. It was a diverse group in terms of the age of the participants. We've got lots more young people. There is a racial diversity that I'm seeing within the movement that I had not seen to the extent that it is now. And my goodness, the diversity in terms of sexual orientation. I mean, I'm guessing at least a third of our ministers and practitioners are gay, lesbian, trans, probably at least a third. Maybe it's a quarter, I don't know. But extremely diverse in just every aspect that you can imagine. And it's such a beautiful thing to see all of these people of all these different races and ethnicities and backgrounds coming together. Because as diverse as we are, there are certainly some commonalities, and one of those things is what we believe as a movement. And I'm going to throw up a quote here from Ernest Holmes, who's the founder of this faith tradition that is called Science of Mind and Religious Science, and also Centers for Spiritual Living. And what Ernest said in the Science of Mind book is that within the infinite mind, each individual exists. We're not separate from life, neither is it separated from us, but we are separate entities in it, individualized centers of God consciousness. And so I think that's just a really beautiful way of saying that we are all part of the oneness. You know, if you think about an ocean that has an infinite number of waves and how each one of those waves has its life as it moves through the ocean, it is its own thing, but yet it's part of the larger thing that we call the ocean, that infinite expression. And so each one of us in all of our beauty and difference and uniqueness, just like a wave in the ocean, we're all part of that one God consciousness. And that really is the core of what we teach at Centers for Spiritual Living. So as you see all of these different people from all these different backgrounds and countries and speaking all these different languages coming together under this idea and this philosophy of oneness. And it's not a naive, you know, a place of naivete. It comes from a place of scientific understanding. It comes from a place of mystical union. It comes from a place of our own experience of knowing that at the core of our being, we are all one. And I love that. I love that. It's another great quote from Ernest Holmes, also from the Science of Mind book. It says, in the moments of deepest realization, the great mystics have sensed that one life flows through all, and that all are some part of that life. So each and every one of us has a place in this thing that we call life, right? And all of its beauty and all of its crazy and its ugly and all of the wonder and insanity, right? Like this whole spectrum of this thing that we call life, that each one of us has a part to play and a reason for being in this thing together. And so I love our group, our congregation, our larger population of Centers for Spiritual Living. And so at the convention, there were lots of different speakers. Convention opened up with an address from our spiritual leader, Edward Villon, who is of South African descent, lives in California, is a gay man, and is just a love and a light. He is an author. He is an extremely generous and kind and wonderful man. And so he opened convention, and he talked about the crazy of 2020, as did Reverend Sonia Byrne, and talked about the four-letter word that was 2020. But the thing that I was reminded of in both their conversations was of the anchor that each one of us have in this truth teaching, that despite the crazy and the fear and the anger and all of the things that were kind of overflowing and bubbling, that bubbled up to the surface in 2020, that we had this incredible teaching to be able to lean on in times of difficulty and to help us navigate the change and the craziness that happened throughout the year. And so that was a theme also throughout the conversations. Let's see, what do I want to tell you? I'm sorry there weren't more of you that were able to join us at convention. They were at several different locations. I think we opened up in Maui, and we're at several different places throughout those 3 days, with different centers being the hub of the activities, so to speak. And so that was a wonderful opportunity. Hopefully next year we'll get to be in person with one another. And of course, there will be another aspect of it that will be online for those who can't join us. But so to go back again to who we are, it's kind of a, my goodness, we are a very, as I said, diverse group of people. We are, as a group of people, unapologetically optimistic. That was another one of the wonderful things that I got from Reverend Edwards' talk, as well as many others, that we know, or we come from this amazing teaching and this idea that we are held in the hand of God always, and that no matter what circumstances may appear to be in the moment, that as we hold on to that idea, that we can get through anything, that we know that we have all of the resources that we need to move through whatever circumstance may be ahead of us. And so our teaching became an anchor for everyone. I know it was certainly true for myself, that this teaching was an amazing gift. So as we went through COVID, and as we are continuing to move through some of the uncertainty of what's going on right now. So let's see. So the next thing about convention, there was all of the diversity of the people, but then there's the why we come together, right? Why do we feel this need to come together in groups and in solidarity? And I can tell you for myself, it's just so wonderful to find that group of people that I feel like I can connect with at the deepest level, right? There are people that I'm related to by blood, right? That I don't have as much in common with as I do with some of the people that, many of the people actually that I've met through Centers for Spiritual Living, because we have this common kind of outlook on life and belief about why we're here. And so we come together in community to restore one another, to support one another, to basically to plug in, and that's certainly what happened to me in being able to watch. And I hope that that is what happens for each one of you, that as you're watching from wherever you may happen to be, whether you're in Ocala or you're in Louisiana or you're in California or even in Switzerland, we have people who are tuning in from all over the place, but that you feel that you can come into this space and be rejuvenated by being amongst people who are looking for possibility and who are coming from a space of loving kindness and a belief in oneness, and the idea that we all rise by helping to lift one another, that is how we all get to a higher level. And so that is a large part of why we come together, again, is to support one another, to learn from one another, to get charged up so that we could go out into the world and do what it is that we are here to do. And so what is that thing that we're here to do? Well, let's see here. I've got another wonderful slide from a minister by the name of Jim Lockhart. And Jim writes about the beloved community and the idea of the beloved community as people on a spiritual pathway who are seeking closer relationship with God, who will take their spiritual awareness into the world to be examples of love and compassion in action. That was also one of the beautiful things that I got to hear and to experience in convention this year, was just being in sessions, particularly the breakout sessions around diversity and inclusion that were hosted through CSL. I am part of one of the committees that is called the Spiritually Motivated Social Engagement Committee. And what we do on the SMSE committee for Centers for Spiritual Living is that we draft the news releases and the documents that are put out by Centers for Spiritual Living for the world at large, right? what do you call it, news releases and things that come out in the name of Edward Villon. So sometimes we do those proactively, and sometimes they are a result of something that happens, a shooting that may happen, or one of the last incidences was the resurgence of capital punishment on the federal level. And so there was conversation around creating a joint document about that. So anyway, the Spiritually Motivated Social Engagement Committee is kind of that bridge between what we teach as Centers for Spiritual Living and how we show up in the world. So we are thinking globally, but acting locally. And so there was a series of talks that were done during convention to see what is going on in our communities. What are our spiritual communities experiencing on the local level? Like, what kinds of things are people seeing? And there was an awful lot of commonality, whether people were from Florida, or they were from California, or they were from Canada, that the COVID pandemic and the political disruption that we've had in our country has really caused a lot of anxiety and distress in our communities. And there are all kinds of issues. There are financial issues. There are issues in just interpersonal issues and getting along with people on the other side of the political aisle, or there's just seems to be so much dissension. And so there are people hurting in communities all across the country, all across the world. And there was a deep recognition of that among many in our communities. And there are still some that are living in what we might call bubbles, or maybe their experience is just is fabulous and wonderful, and they're not taking much notice of what's happening in some other parts of their community or their world. But at any rate, one of the things Edward said that struck me was that apathy, the idea of apathy being the antithesis of love. We think maybe of hatred as being the opposite of love, but really the opposite of love is to just not care. And so that can be a danger for some communities. Maybe there are people who are not as affected by the issues of poverty and racism, and actually are privileged enough to be able to close their eyes to that awareness. But Centers for Spiritual Living as a movement is calling us to that greater awareness, to being able to look at those difficult places, those darker experiences, the segregation and the racism, and so much of the hurt in our communities, to be able to really look at that. And I would say historically in our movement, much like the positive thinking movement in general, there can be a tendency to want to bypass, right? Because we don't like to look at those painful things. We don't like to feel the pain. And so we want to look and know that everything is good and everything is going to be okay. So we go straight there without trying to not have to go through the pain on the way to the other side. But Centers for Spiritual Living as a movement is committed to taking a look at those things and being able to have the difficult conversations within our communities, and to take this work outside of our traditional brick and mortar communities. So that is part of why we're coming together, is to share ideas about how to do outreach in our communities, to share ideas of how to spread the message in ways that are effective and ways that people can hear and can replicate, and to support one another. And so another quote from Jim Lockhart here: "The individual pathway will vary. It can be any denomination of any faith tradition, or simply people who gather to find out how to be better versions of themselves. Almost any creed can be the seedbed of the beloved community. And so that's what we believe at Centers for Spiritual Living, that we are the beloved community, but that each one of us within this community, right, we are all this kind of ripple effect, right? Each one of us is a center of our community, and we can be the beloved community, and we can spread the idea of the beloved community wherever we show up, whether that's in our families, whether that's in our workplace, whether that's in our neighborhood, wherever it is that we happen to be, we share those ideas of being the beloved community, of being part of that. And so for me, what it means to be part of the beloved community and what I invite from each one of you is to think about the gifts and the talents and the passions that you have, and how to use those gifts, talents, and passions in the service of something bigger than yourself. How do you use that, whether it's in spiritual community, and maybe you're offering those services and those gifts at the Center for Spiritual Living, but maybe you're not anywhere near a Center for Spiritual Living. Maybe the place where you're to give your talents and gifts is in your workplace, or maybe it's in your neighborhood. I don't know what that is, but I know that you, just like me, just like every single one of us, has gifts that are uniquely yours, that are yours to share in some way. They're not for you to keep, they're for you to give away. And so that's what I'm inviting you to do in whatever realm of beloved community you find yourself, whether it's within your own family, or as I said, in your workplace or your neighborhood or your larger community, that you find a way to tap into those gifts and talents and share them, because that's what you're here to do. That's what we're all here to do. So what else can I tell you about the beloved community? I think that is it. What I want to see here is, does anyone have any comments, thoughts? We just have some greetings. Travis, Deb Love, Tom is here. Oh, so wonderful to see you all. I am so missing Donna and Norma. If you tuned in as I started speaking, just letting you know to please say some prayers for our practitioners. Donna is going back to New York City to do another traveling nurse gig for at least 8 weeks. And so we will miss her terribly, but just do keep her in your prayers. And pray also for the members of our community who, may not have gotten COVID, but have been struggling with feelings of isolation and a little loneliness. And so do reach out to one another, and remember that we are all part of this beloved community, whether you ever set foot in a Center for Spiritual Living or not, that is what we are here to create. And so I think that kind of wraps us up for this part of what I want to talk about today. And I'm going to invite you to support the Center for Spiritual Living, if you can, in whatever way financially. If we have 100 people and everybody's sending us $20, that goes a great way toward helping us meet our expenses and be able to get our message out. We just appreciate everybody who volunteers, who gives of their time, their talent, and treasure to support the Center for Spiritual Living. And we're just so glad to be able to serve you. And so I'm going to invite you to do our affirmation. Or maybe I'm not, because there it goes. And this is our affirmation. I invite you to say it, to just think about it, maybe bring your heart to your hand to your heart, and just make these words your own. It is the nature of life to give of itself. As it is the tree's nature to bear fruit and the flower's nature to bloom, it is my nature to share the gifts of my time, talent, and treasure. I participate in the divine flow of life, giving generously and receiving abundantly. I am blessed and I am a blessing. I am grateful. And I am indeed so very grateful for each one of you who takes the time to tune in, and for those of you who give to the Center for Spiritual Living. If this is your first time watching us, you'll notice there's a little ticker tape going across the bottom. It says you can donate via PayPal at cslocala.org, or you can text to tithe, and that means you would use your smartphone and just text to the number 352-320-5110. Put in the amount of money you would like to donate to the center, and it will go right from your account into ours. And so we are very grateful for anything that you can give. And so I will remove this. What else do I want to tell you? I want to invite you all as well to join us in visioning. Oops, that's the wrong date. Excuse that date. That should say whatever the first Sunday is in March, which will be March 7th at 4 o'clock on Zoom. We're going to be actually doing some visioning on a regular basis. And for those of you who are not familiar with what visioning is, it's kind of, the idea is catching the bigger idea of what Spirit may have in store for us, right? When we envision something, you bring to mind the thing that it is that you want to have. Like, for example, I may want to have a new house. So I can sit in the quiet of my home in my chair here and think about and envision what kind of house I might want to have, right? How many rooms I want it to have. Do I want to have a fireplace or a swimming pool? The colors, like you can think of all of those things. That's using your vision in a particular, in a different kind of way. You already have in mind what it is that you want. When we do the visioning process, what we do is to get in a space of quiet, and we can do this on our own or we can do this in a group. As a group exercise, it's very, very valuable and can be very instructive. And we go through a meditative process of catching Spirit's larger vision of what may be possible. And so you'll get, you may get images, you may get words, you may get ideas, whatever it is, you jot it down. And when we're doing it as a group, everyone is taking notes. And then at the end, we kind of debrief and see what common threads come about. And so what we are looking to vision for over the next several weeks, months, as we come out of COVID, is what is the next iteration of Center for Spiritual Living Ocala? What is that going to look like as we go forward? I don't see, and most of us are not actually seeing, that we will come back in the same way that we were prior to COVID. It looks like a different picture, a different vision is wanting to be born. And so we invite each one of you to participate to the way that you can. And we just, we are looking to bring in as many voices to give us as broad a vision as we can get for how it is that we are to serve as Center for Spiritual Living Ocala, both our local community, the folks that would be coming into the center, but also people, as I said, that we are reaching now that may never set foot in the physical center of the Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. So we invite you to participate in that visioning process with us. As I said, it will be the first of every month. And I will have the results of our February visioning for folks to look in on. And so let's see if there are any other messages here. Does not appear there is anything else. So I'm going to put it up on the chat how you all can join us in the Zoom call following service. And we'll be joining in on Zoom I'm looking at the time, it's 3:35. So for those of you who'd like to join us on Zoom after this call, join us at 3:45. That's about 10 minutes from now. And we can, when we get together for those sessions, you'll actually get to see other people on the screen, and people share their prayer requests and their hopes and their dreams and whatever things might be going on, plus any kind of discussion about whatever today's talk topic was. So I invite you to join us on Zoom. And with that, I believe I will be closing us out with another prayer, and that is the prayer for protection that comes from our brothers and sisters in unity. And this is a prayer by James Dillett Freeman that I just love, and I just used to say it with my kids all the time. And it's simple and easy to remember, but yet very powerful. And so I invite you to make this yours as well. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And I just pray and affirm that all is well in your world, and that anything that looks like a challenge or a block to you this week just becomes a stepping stone to your greater and greater yet to be. Love you and look forward to connecting with you later on Zoom or next week. Have a great week.